Bi zdaj nadaljevali k naslednji točki današnjega programa, in sicer pomen vseživljenjskega učenja in izobraževanja odraslih, in sicer preko organizacije EAEA, prisotni pa tudi tisti, ki bodo to kasneje pogledali. Se mi zdi, da to zelo dobro že poznamo, pa vendarle Evropsko združenje za izobraževanje odraslih je glas neformalnega izobraževanja odraslih v Evropi. EAEA je nevladna organizacija s 120 organizacijami, članicami v 43 državah in predstavlja skupaj več kot 60 milijonov učencev po vsej Evropi. Se pravi, to je kar velika baza odraslih. Njen namen je povezovanje in zastopanje evropskih organizacij, ki so neposredno vključene v izobraževanje odraslih, spodbuja učenje odraslih, dostop in sodelovanje v neformalnem izobraževanju za vse, zlasti pa za skupine, ki so premalo zastopane. Do nedavna smo bili člani EAEA tudi naše društvo, zdaj pa je njen član Andragoški center Republike Slovenije. Zdaj si bomo pogledali posebej za to priložnost pripravljen videoposnetek generalne sekretarke EAEA, kolegice Gine Ebner. Samo nekaj besed o njej, mogoče še. Je dolgoletna generalna sekretarka te organizacije, osebno predana razvoju izobraževanja odraslih, velika zagovornica izobraževanja odraslih na evropski ravni in zagovornica tudi nacionalnih kontekstov razvoja izobraževanja odraslih in vedno tista, ki nekako zagovarja stališče, da mora biti odrasli, torej posameznik, vedno postavljen v središče, da se sliši glas učečega se. Svoje delo povezuje tudi z drugimi mednarodnimi organizacijami v izobraževanju odraslih in se zavzema za nekako holističen pogled, to, kar smo danes v bistvu v Borutovem prispevku lahko zaslutili, a ne. Pri čemer posebej zagovarja pomen neformalnega izobraževanja odraslih, povezanega z osebnim razvojem odraslega in participacijo v skupnosti, kar je bil tudi v bistvu poudarek današnjega predavanja. Tako da bi prosila, da si pogledamo. Ida me opozarja še to, da zaradi tega, ker je posnetek nastal pred 2 dnevoma, se mi zdi, nismo uspeli prevesti, ga pa bomo, preden bo javno objavljen, podnaslovili. Tako da se oproščamo za to, da že tule niso podnaslovi. Izvoli.
Thank you very much for inviting me for your event in Ljubljana. I would have loved to be there. It's been some time that I've visited Slovenia and your lovely capital. Unfortunately, I'm in very rainy Brussels, and nevertheless, I hope I'll give you some information and inspiration from the EU level. So let me get straight into it. I'm going to be talking about some general challenges. I'm going to tell you a bit what we're going to do as EAEA, and I'll also highlight some points pointing to the future and where there might be some issues. So let me quickly, if I manage that, because yes, share screen. I'll be talking about the EU level and how we see the developments concerning adult education. And obviously there are some very big topics that we share across Europe and in quite a few cases beyond Europe as well. 2 topics that are very high on the agenda of the European Commission, and not only green transition and digital transition, so managing a more sustainable society, creating jobs, knowledge, information, and of course dealing with digital issues. And as you can guess, artificial intelligence has become a key topic here as well. Then a second point is about a just transition, because if we talk about transitioning and developing our societies in certain directions, we need to make sure that we're leaving no one behind, that these changes also have a social, a very strong social dimension, so that people can catch up and are able to manage their lives in different situations. Of course, war, unfortunately, has become a strong topic, whether we look at Ukraine, which is, of course, a close neighbor and a situation that touches many of us, also because I think most European countries have welcomed refugees from Ukraine. But also other developments like Israel, Gaza, and so on do have an impact on what is currently going on. We can talk about growing inequalities accompanied by social unrest. In some cases, we have demonstrations, we have people who feel left behind. It also leads to growing divisions in society. We very often nowadays have a separation in various countries, almost or around half of the people going in one direction and then the other half in another one. So that is, and less possibilities and willingness to actually talk to each other. And here, for example, that's, of course, a big role for adult education. We have right-wing extremism, which is worrying for a number of reasons. And of course, we have social media that actually supports these divisions and problems in many ways. Now, more generally, looking at adult education, we do have some issues, and probably you recognize some of those from your national level, and that is what is adult learning and education? There are quite a few people who do not know that. There are those who think it's basically it's skills. There are those who think it's basic skills, literacy and so on, or it's just vocational training, professional training. But of course, we have a very holistic understanding. But it can be difficult to argue for adult education if people do not understand what we're exactly talking about. Very often we have a fragmentation of governance across institutions. So part of adult education might be in the Ministry of Labor, another one Ministry of Education, Ministry of Culture, and so on. In some countries, it's at the national level, in some it's on the regional level, and so on and so on. We also see that there is very often a lack of understanding what adult education can achieve. And many of you might actually know our manifesto, where we are trying to demonstrate what adult education can achieve. And I can already announce that an updated version is almost ready. I'm getting next week the new layout, and hopefully by May we will have a new version with some adapted topics and maybe some highlights. I mentioned artificial intelligence, for example, that we didn't yet talk about in the last version. We also have a bit the attitude, when you listen to politicians, policymakers, they often say adult education and skills, it's been so important and it has never been more important than nowadays. But very often, these declarations are not followed by action, not followed by infrastructure, resources, and so on. So it's difficult. You know, if you talk to someone, they say, well, you're absolutely right. It's so important. How do you argue about that? So, well, I think some of these things you know very well. There are people who think adult learning, general adult education is something you do privately, and financing is often reflected by that, as in, should we really go ahead and finance something that isn't directly beneficial to the labor market? Yeah, there are some other issues like low participation, not enough outreach, not yet enough cooperation, and so on. Now, what are some of the opportunities that we see? We are in the final phase of the European Year of Skills. And although we are not 100% happy with the focus on skills exclusively, our attitude is, as long as we're looking at skills and we can, you know, underline the need for life skills, that is already a very good thing. There are initiatives that are promising. The new European Agenda for Adult Learning, which was proposed by the Slovenian presidency. And I know some of our colleagues from your organization were actually very active in making that happen. There is the Marrakesh Framework for Action, which was developed by UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning with a strong involvement of civil society. And we are very happy with the Marrakesh framework. There is also a new director at the UNESCO Institute who is very committed to make sure that the framework is being implemented. So these are all good signs. We are also focusing, and that also comes up, an understanding of transformative adult learning, change-oriented. And I can tell you that EAEA will have its annual conference in June. I think 10th, 11th, 12th. Well, sorry, I should know that by heart, but well. So if anyone has the opportunity to come to Helsinki and join us, please do so. But if not, I think we might stream some sessions. So do have a look. It is a very important topic. I was talking about transitions, but it's also something that is very close to, I think, all of our hearts, because when we talk about adult education, we do believe that it can transform lives and communities. There is a greater visibility also in the Eastern Partnership countries. I'm very pleased that the European Training Foundation, for example, has a new focus on adult education, so not only higher education. And we have been doing quite some work with them in the last couple of years, trying to exchange with them, but also our members in that area, to promote non-formal adult education. And there will be, hopefully, I heard that the paper is almost ready. There has been quite a bit of a discussion at the European level about mobility, and mobility especially for adults. You might know that in Erasmus Plus, we do have a small mobility for adult education staff. And there is a small mobility for adults, but it is relatively complicated to set that up. It's within an institution and so on. And there has been quite some consultation of how that should develop. And the text, which we were involved in. So that was also a very good sign that they really, the Commission really consulted civil society and also a lot of citizens, that there will be recommendations that are much more open, where more adults should have the possibility to learn in another European country. Now, what are we planning? I already mentioned our annual conference on transforming lives, communities, and society. It will take place together with our General Assembly in Helsinki in June. And we also will have our Grundtvig Award ceremony. We had submissions exactly for that topic. I heard from my colleagues that we have more than 30 submissions, so it will be very, very interesting. I already mentioned the European Year of Skills. I mentioned here as well the conference of the Belgian presidency on the topic of lifelong learning, and it actually took place yesterday and the day before, so I can immediately report. We were a bit disappointed that there wasn't enough emphasis on non-formal adult education. It was seen, there was a big approach to lifelong learning, but there was also a very strong emphasis on higher education, which is fine, but we felt there should have been more of a balance. On the other hand, we did have two speakers coming from a civil society. One of our colleagues from Ireland represented EAEA, and she underlined how important community education is. She also underlined the need for learners' voice, for learners to be included. And one of my colleagues, Rafaela, was speaking on behalf of Lifelong Learning Platform, also talking about learner-centered approaches, flexibility that would support learners and not only the labor market, and going beyond the labor market. What is very important for us are the European elections that are coming up. They are taking place just before our annual conference. I think it's 8th and 9th. It depends a bit on which countries. There's a period of 3 days, and 8th, 9th June is definitely part of that. I will talk a bit more about that in a moment. I already mentioned some of these topics. And when it comes to the European elections, we have provided our members with some tools to approach candidates and the parties that are running. We are trying to encourage adult educators, adult education staff to actually participate in the elections. Of course, we are not recommending a particular party, with the exception of saying, please look for people who support adult education and lifelong learning. Please make sure that we have Democrats, people that are actually convinced about Europe there. So that is quite important for us. And for example, the new manifesto we will also use to, once we know who will be the new members of parliament, we will try and meet them and hand over the manifesto and try and find new supporters in the new parliament. There are other topics that are very, very important at the Commission level at the moment. Individual learning accounts, for example, micro-credentials on the other hand. Upskilling pathways is still very much on the agenda, which is a topic that we, of course, are very strongly involved in. But also individual learning accounts, we are involved in a big project on national registries, and micro-credentials are, of course, an issue that we want to be strongly represented in, because we think micro-credentials isn't or shouldn't be only for formal education and universities and whatever, but should also be part of non-formal learning for the people who want to achieve micro-credentials. And of course, validation of non and informal learning remains a key issue. Learning pathways, modular learning, building skills portfolios is key. And next year we will talk about that, about flexible learning pathways. We will discuss, is it still up to date to talk about, one sector and being very separate from another, and shouldn't we be more cohesive and comprehensive? So I'm looking forward to having really strong discussions about that next year. Skills anticipation, of course, is a strong topic not only at the EU level and OECD and CEDEFOP and other organizations are discussing the changing world of work and what that means also for skills, but also lifelong learning systems. And in some cases, we have a stronger discrepancy between institutional perspectives, private sector, civil society. It depends a bit on the country where we are in that. And I already mentioned the just transition. I already mentioned learning mobility for adults. We are also talking about transnational paid educational leave. One of our colleagues, Davide, who's a trained lawyer, discovered that there are countries that have paid educational leave. In many countries it's about a week where people can take leave and then do a course or participate in some form of learning. And he discovered that in quite a few countries or regions you have to do that in your country, in your region. And we think that actually contradicts the European approach, and we want to make sure that people could also go abroad to learn something. Guidance is an important topic, just as outreach, validation, sustainability, and learning about sustainability, just like global citizenship. Yes, transferability of skills, that goes a bit together with our thematic topic for next year. And of course, the whole range of professional skills, sector-specific skills, but also, and that is of course where we're coming from, transversal skills, competencies, life skills, basic skills. So that is something we are trying to do whenever the Commission or presidency talk about professional skills. We are the ones who say, but life skills, other skills, lifelong learning, and so on. And of course, putting the learner at the center is a guiding topic for us, a guiding objective. We are working with learners and not to learners, and we need to provide offers that are relevant for the learner and fit also from an andragogical point of view. Now, in order to wrap up a bit what's going on, I wanted to highlight, of course, we will be dependent on the outcome of the European elections, because what will happen, not only will we have a new parliament and quite a lot of new MEPs, this also means that we will have a new committee for education and training and lifelong learning. There will be a new committee on employment and social issues. We don't know yet how these committees will look like. Current forecasts say there will be a shift to more nationalist and nationalistic groups, which might undermine the European idea. We don't know yet what will come. But then, of course, the next step will also be that the countries, the member states, will nominate their candidates for the commissioners. That means we are looking forward to see who will be the commissioner for education, who will be the commissioner for employment and social affairs. Will they rearrange the various Directorate Generals. I mean, we, for example, together with our platform, Lifelong Learning Platform, we would like to see a commissioner for lifelong learning. So really a comprehensive approach to and holistic approach to education and training and lifelong learning. So we are very much looking to that. It will also mean what will be the future of Erasmus Plus and the program, because we will, I think it will be in 2027. But that means the works will already start a couple of years before that. So probably once the new parliament has settled in and the commissioners, they will start talking about what the new program and programs will look like. It will also cover the European Social Fund and Horizon. So in a way, we really need a strong parliament that supports these programs and is also willing to spend money on that. And we need commissioners who actually support that. So that will be key. Another issue is, will they support civil society? We know some of the countries in Europe are not very open to civil society and their activities. If that becomes stronger at the European level, it might have an impact how we in EAEA and our sister organizations can work. So that is a bit of a concern. And of course, I mentioned war earlier. What we see now is that for the next period that is coming up, there will be quite some focus on defense because of the situation that we're currently in. We haven't had that, I think, never before. It will probably mean that at least some part of the budget that the European Union and the Commission and so on have will go into that direction. And it will probably mean that some of the other issues will be reduced. I have heard that they are currently discussing the future of the whole social area. Those of you who work more with EU questions will remember the European Pillar of Social Rights, which was a very important initiative, having 20 guidelines about social policies, and actually education, training, lifelong learning was guideline number 1. It looks like these 20 points might be reduced. And at the moment, what we've seen is that, education, training, lifelong learning might be reduced to skills for competitiveness, which is not what, the overall holistic point is. So let's see how we can work with that and whether there will still be changes. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. At the moment, there are some highlights going on or positive developments. On the other hand, together with some other developments at the European and global level, there are signs that we're not always going in the right direction. But let's hope that we do have, as I said, supporters and promoters of adult education in the new parliament, that we might get a commissioner who is committed to that topic. And of course, in EAEA, we will continue to be the voice of non-formal adult education at the EU level. And hopefully you will support us in the work we're doing at the EU level. Hopefully we'll be able to return that as well and give you enough information and support from the EU level. So thank you very much. I would have loved to be there in person. Next time I'll try to be there. Bye-bye.
Hvala lepa. Najprej bi rekla, naj vas pomirim. Nekoliko smo prekoračili čas. Imamo potem v drugem delu nekoliko rezerve, tako da bom jaz v drugem delu nekoliko bolj striktna pri času, pa vendarle se mi zdi, da v tem uvodnem delu, ko smo se sprehodili skozi domače zdaj in EU, stanje na področju nekoliko bolj kritično, da je vredno bilo žrtvovati ta čas, da vidimo različne vidike, ki so pred nami